Evil Dead Rise used 6,500 liters of fake blood, and it shows. But how does it hold up to the rest of the films in the Evil Dead franchise? Let's talk about it. Evil Dead Rise centers on two sisters who end up having to battle for survival in their high-rise apartment building after someone unleashes demonic forces from the Book of the Dead. So this film is directed by Lee Cronin, who is an Irish filmmaker you might remember from his film The Hole in the Ground. This movie clocks in at 96 minutes, and it is bloody. I feel like this film perfectly captures the essence and tone of the original Evil Dead films while putting its own spin on it. I like that they took the story out of the cabin in the woods and placed it in this apartment setting. And like the cabin in the woods, the apartment setting is equally isolating, equally claustrophobic, and just as terrifying. The apartment feels very lived in. Before the bloodshed kicks in, Cronin does a fantastic job of introducing us to this family and allowing us to connect with them. He especially did this well with the two sisters, Ellie and Beth. Ellie, the headstrong mother figure played by Alyssa Sutherland, is fantastic in this. It's incredible to watch her transform from this compassionate, selfless mother figure into an evil deadite mommy. Not only does Sutherland bring a warmth to human Ellie, she also brings a little bit of that into the possessed Ellie. We see her fighting through the evil possessed demon to communicate that she wants her kids to be safe. But when she is transformed into evil deadite Ellie, she is just mesmerizing to watch. She brings this intensity and physicality to the part that is just incredible. It's incredible what she's able to do, and she has like the perfect features for a deadite. There's just something about her smile and her mannerisms and just the way she delivers specific lines. She's just so sinister, and she switches at the blink of a hat to be a little bit manipulative towards her children, and it's so cool to watch. She's so good. And the actress herself, she's been documenting some behind the scenes stuff on social media, which is just really cool because she did a lot of her own stunts there, and it's so cool to see it all come together and just see how she can move her body just to make the scene even more unsettling. And because Ellie as a human is so compassionate and she has this sweetness to her and kindness, that it makes it even more devastating to watch her transform into a deadite. The actress who plays her sister, Lily Sullivan, is also a standout to me. She plays this kind of rough around the edges, career-focused younger sister to Ellie, and she kind of looks at herself as a kind of a mess up, but she is super focused on her family and the love she has for her family, and she will not stop fighting for that family. And it's so cool to watch her transformation over the course of the film, and she truly transforms into a very much Ash-like hero, and I think she's a great final girl. And along with the two female leads, the kids in this movie are also fantastic. You forget that they're acting. Like, they don't feel like typical child actors where you can just tell, like, they're acting. The little girl in this, fantastic. I wanted to hold her in a hug the whole time because the stuff she's witnessing, it's absolutely scarring. And you believe everything that's happening because of the emotions she conveys through her eyes and the little sweet moments she continues to try to share with her aunt throughout the film. She's just so good. And the other two characters are great as well. It's really cool to watch them all interact, and they really truly feel like a family. And it's sad to see this family going through this horrific act. And I think along with the incredible performances, Evil Dead Rise really utilizes the apartment setting to its advantage very well. The film is filled with over-the-top violence and gore that we've come to love in the Evil Dead franchise, and it also has incredibly cool sequences and moments that are reminiscent of the Evil Dead films. There's some incredibly cool sequences in this involving a peephole in the door where we're seeing this kind of carnage take place through the POV of the peephole, And it's just, that shot was just so entertaining to me because there's limitations to what you can see, but what you are shown is just so off the walls crazy. And there's another sequence with an eyeball that is one of the most hilarious and disturbing things I've ever watched. I laughed so loudly at that part. It was just, there's so many little moments like that where what's happening is so ridiculous, so terrifying and gross that you just can't help but laugh. And I feel like Cronin perfectly balanced that tonality throughout the film. I think there are so many moments in this that made me squirm and that will make audiences squirm in their seat. I had a girl next to me in the theater the whole time saying, "Oh my god, I'm gonna throw up, I'm gonna throw up." And stuff like that is like music to my ears during a horror movie. Thankfully, she did not throw up, but there was tons of throw up in the movie. So if you're squeamish to that, just be prepared. There's lots of bloody throw up stuff happening. There's glass eating, and of course the infamous cheese grater scene that we see in the trailer. The moment happens, it's perfect, it's quick, but it is so effective, and that got the loudest response from the theater goers around me. Just every sequence was so cool, so intense, so fast-paced. Once the bloodshed and action picks up, it does not stop until the very end. So there's no moments where you can get up and go to the bathroom because you're gonna miss something. It's just like unrelenting, and that's what I love in horror. I love that feeling, that high energy, high stakes feeling. There's also an incredible scene involving a bloody elevator that is very reminiscent of The Shining. It's just so cool. It was so beautiful to watch. I just, Another interesting thing to note is that the film does not steer clear of harming the children. So that is interesting to note. It makes things that are happening harder to stomach and harder to watch and even more terrifying. Like, nothing is off limits in this, and everyone is prime to be possessed. So you can just imagine that the situation just keeps getting worse and worse over the course of the film. Another thing I enjoyed is that the film steers clear of any of the sexual connotations that the original film had, where you have the tree branches kind of doing some things to the characters, and this one doesn't do that. When we see Ellie, when she becomes possessed, it's not like that at all, but they still utilize that tree branch, viney look and situation, but in a different setting. I think they did it very well. The film also has tons of callbacks and Easter eggs to the original Evil Dead films that I think fans will really appreciate and enjoy, and it's stuff like that that made me so happy, because you can tell Cronin is a huge Evil Dead fan and he appreciates it. And this film is made with such appreciation and care. It's not trying to retell the Evil Dead films. It's an extension of the Evil Dead films. It's branching out and expanding this universe. And I feel like there is some connection to the original films without explicitly saying it. And I feel like with Evil Dead, that's what's so cool about it, is that we have this mythology, this Evil Dead, this Book of the Dead that possesses people, and it has done so for years and centuries, that it's prime for being told through other characters and other situations, and we don't always need Ash to tell this story. It's so much bigger than Ash and the cabin in the woods, and I love that this movie is expanding on that story, and I'm hoping that we'll get more expansion from this in future films. I also think this film did a really cool job at expanding on the mythology a little bit, and how we're introduced to the Book of the Dead is really unique in this one. It involves a record, and that record is played, and we hear the incantation, and it's really cool way to introduce audiences to this world. And I feel like it really highlights how evil this evil is, and that it's unrelenting. It will never stop, and it heightens things and makes you realize this is super dangerous. This is an evil that can't be stopped, and it will continue to go on even after these people fight against it. Even Ash couldn't stop it. It's just gonna keep going. The movie there's just so many cool moments in it. There's specific iconic imagery and things from the original films that do make appearances in this movie, and I think they did a really great job at doing it. And I just think that the lead character, when you watch her in this movie, you're like, holy shit, she actually kind of resembles Ash, but a female version of him. And it's just so cool when you see that all come together. I think that the wraparound segment of the film is probably the weakest part for me because it doesn't really have a connection to the people in the story. Or it kind of does, but it didn't do it well in my opinion, and it wasn't a super standout to me aside from the title card reveal. This movie has one of the most badass title card reveals I've ever seen in my life. When that title card pops up on the screen, I was in awe and I could not stop smiling. And they give you a moment to just like take it in, and it's beautiful, it's glorious, and I loved it. And that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the movie. I was like, okay, yes, let's go, baby. We're in, I'm all in, and it was a blast. It was so good. It was so worth it. And it's interesting to note all the practical effects. I mean, everything is mostly practical effects that we see, like lots of stabbing going on, lots of people being raised up on wires, even like people crawling around and stuff. They all did that with their actual bodies, which is just so cool to me. And again, the blood in this movie, they used about 6,500 liters of fake blood. And you can tell, you can see, and that's just so cool to me. It just feels real, it feels raw, and it's disgusting. And it's what I wanted, and I loved it so much. I think that the movie itself is very interesting. It does a lot of interesting things. It has fantastic characters that I connected with immediately and I wanted to see survive. I don't think it does anything crazy new or out there, but I think it did what it set out to do. I think this is perfect for new fans entering the genre, or new fans, horror fans that are new to the series. Like, this is a good gateway entry into the Evil Dead franchise, in my opinion, especially for younger people who are just getting started. I think this is a perfect horror movie to watch with a crowd because you just feed off of that energy and that excitement, and just hearing everybody's responses to the stuff happening on screen just makes it even more entertaining. I am super excited to see where this story goes, and I highly recommend reading some interviews with director Lee Cronin because he explains a lot of his thought process during the whole thing. He calls out specific details. I think Evil Dead Rise was fantastic. I thought it had incredible gore and violence and practical effects. The cast is incredible, especially Alyssa Sutherland. I love her. Mummies with the Maggots now. Iconic. And I urge you all to go to the theater to see it. Please let me know what you thought of this one in the comments, but keep it spoiler free. And thank you so much for watching, guys. I will catch you next time. Bye.